Good evening, everyone. We'll be sitting for 15 minutes. You're seeing the residents in the Pie House living room because Natalie is here in the Zendo. And so once the meditation is finished, we'll switch to the Zendo view. Thank you. Good evening, friends. Let's see. Can you guys hear me in the living room? Yeah,
We hear
great.
you.
So thanks, Roshi. So just an unusual situation here. I'm here with Natalie Goldberg in the Zendo, and she's not in our Upaya bubble, but she is on our Upaya hearts. So here she is while the residents are in the Upaya House living room where we had our meditation. So just to say that, Natalie, thank you for everything. You're amazing. If you don't know Natalie Goldberg, who's got how many books? 30 books?
No, not 30,
15. And so we're here to bear witness once again. Thank you so much. And I need to transition to her view. Okay.
is it to me now? Okay. That's why Kigaku has a mask on. He's being very considerate, but next week I will join the pod. I'm really looking forward to it. This is pod, not everybody, can't take it for granted that Upaya has been very insular, not in the world, but physically being very protective. They were being very smart. And so it has been closed to people, local people. And I'm finally going to surrender next week and be able to come in because I won't be going out. Does that make any sense? I hope so. So it's, soon is New Year's. I think Friday night, amazingly, this year is over. How that happened, I don't know. I was just learning to write 2021, and now I have to learn 2022. And so Friday night is New Year's, and I hope you will join Upaya and all of us. I've done it for 13 years now in a row. We've, New Year's, usually we sit in the Zendo until midnight when 108 bells are rung. And then we go into the kitchen and we all have tea and cookies. I'm afraid you're going to have your own tea and cookies now. But that was a very fun part for me, I have to say. And the last time, the cookies were really good, and I ate 6 of them. And I remember that because I went home with a stomach ache. But I never learn. So please come, even though now we'll have to do it on Zoom or whatever else gadgets you have. It's a wonderful thing. And then you have an excuse not to go out and party and drink. And also because it's now COVID. So it's an extra excuse to please take care of ourselves. And so please join us. And I also want to thank Roshi Joan and the whole community, Upaya community. They've felt the suffering that's been going on. And I know that Roshi has made just nonstop effort to keep offering things, offering different programs, sometimes several in a week. I'm just so surprised to catch any interest to help you carry ourselves during this time, because it's a hard time. There's no way around it. And I want to affirm that because we walk around, a lot of us, blaming ourselves for being unhappy right now. But it's very hard. I want to affirm that it's hard. And it's almost coming on 2 years. And I'd like, before the year completely goes, some recent deaths that have been close to me and important. So Joan Didion was one of them. She really survived. Her husband died, her daughter died soon after, and she kept going and kept writing. And she just recently died, and I want to read a little from a commencement speech that she had given. I'm not telling you to make the world better, because I don't think that progress is necessarily part of the package. I'm just telling you to live in it, not just to endure it, not just to suffer it, not just to pass through it, but to live in it, to try to get the picture. And that is particularly important now, I think, with what's going on. I want to just repeat that part. I'm telling you to live in it, not just to endure it, not just to suffer it, not just to pass through it, but to live in it. So this now is our life, and we don't know when it's going to change. And so we need to meet it. I could go on about that, and I will, but I want to recognize 3 other people. E.O. Wilson died, the great scientist who studied ants, and then from ants began to understand human behavior. I'm not big in the science world, but I got to meet him. I went to he had a book signing. I don't even remember when or where. It was a long time ago, but I remember thinking, wow, is this what a scientist could be? He's wonderful. Because I had, some very stereotypes about scientists. So I'd like to recognize his passing too. And then, of course, Desmond Tutu from South Africa, who helped break the apartheid. What a wonderful, wonderful man he is. And I just finished reading a novel called The Promise that won the Booker, just won it this year, 2021. And it's about South Africa during the apartheid and after. And one of the great things I heard Desmond Tutu say was, he said, I got the Nobel Prize. They picked me. They needed an African. They decided it was time, and they could pronounce my last name. So that's the reason they picked me. He said, Tutu, very easy to pronounce. And then people are always passing. And it's good to recognize some and to realize that they're passing. And this person on Christmas Day, I don't know if you know him, Wayne Thiebaud. He's a wonderful painter, and he died at 101 on Christmas Day. And I've loved him. And it was a little sad for me that the New York Times, it wasn't on the front page. It was on the obituary. They gave a very good write-up, but it's because he's a California painter. I feel like sometimes they're prejudiced, but I wanted to show you just a few paintings of his. He was a wonderful man, and he painted right till the end. Here are some cakes and pies. Noah, can you do that? Yeah. Kigaku. You got that? Yeah. Okay, here's another one. And he said that one of the things it never amazed him to put one color next to another, the surprise he felt and the astonishment. Here's a beautiful one. I showed it to Kigaku when we began, and he said, shoes outside the door, which we leave at Zen centers, and also the title of a book, Shoes Outside the Door. And I'll show you one more. I want to show you many more. Oh, you have to see this one. Black ice cream. Do you see the ice cream cone? Great. Okay, I'll stop at that. But Wayne Thiebaud, not everybody might not know him. So I want you to get to know him. So, and I also brought in to confirm what a hard time it is now. And the reason I'm saying this is I've been hearing from students, wonderful students of mine that I've had for a long time who I know very well, that are just kind of breaking down now. One person was living in a certain place and their whole support system just disappeared, either died or had to move or couldn't afford where they were living, and it just melted. Another student, I got a really long letter from her. She's a very stable person, really hard worker, and does very deep, good work in the world. She said, I just can't stand it anymore. And she said, maybe she drives an hour and a half each way to work every day. She said, maybe I should stop listening to NPR for 3 hours a day. And I just saw in the Santa Fean, which is a local paper, colleges fear mental health crisis as virus variant surges. We all know this, but I just read it and I wanted to bring that in, that times are hard. And I know that when I'm in the car listening to the radio and listening to the suffering, and somehow it seems much stronger now. It isn't. People have suffered all the time, but it's so intense right now. And maybe it's also I've stopped doing so much that I'm really taking in the suffering, the tremendous pain. And I think one of my problems, I not only hear about Afghanistan and I hear the details in NPR, which is really good reporting, is to give you details so you really feel it. You don't just have a generalization, but you hear these things. And for me, I imagine myself there and then I go off and it's very painful. And this has been going on for a while. And I keep saying, what can I, and my response is always, what can I do about Afghanistan, Ethiopia, what's happening in China and Hong Kong, in Santa Fe? What can I do? What can I do? And I realize, Nat, you can't do anything until you get stable with it. And so I decided because I would sit, and of course I would write, and I'd sit and just be tossed away, hardly could stay my seat by thinking about what's going on, the violence, the craziness. I've thrown fairness out the window, the injustice. And I've been sitting and almost like shaking up, and I've used this before, vinegar and oil, and you wait for the vinegar to drop and the oil gets clear. That's really what it's like to be sitting when you're not completely taken away by your mind. You just sit and let things distill. And I finally realized, and this sounds so ridiculous, but it was big for me and it rose in me. It came toward me. Nat, this is what suffering is. Because when I would read some of the things in the paper or hear what's going on, I kept thinking, did Bodhidharma know that human beings could be that nuts? Did my Zen teacher? Did Zen? And of course they did. But it finally disseminated down. Nat, this is suffering. Suffering. Can you bear suffering? And because human beings are so complex and so complicated and so run by desire and antagonism and ignorance, They make quite a ball of pain and suffering. That is one of the first marks of existence that you learned when you first started sitting. There are 3 marks of existence: suffering. And the way to meet it, because if it's too much. I read, this came in the mail, and I left it on my desk, and I don't usually read these kind of books. Zen is right here, and it's sayings of Suzuki Roshi. And it sat there on my kitchen table for about 2 weeks, but it was edited by David Chadwick, and I know he does good work. So I thought, go ahead, Nat, read it. And I opened to the first one. Listen to this. Once I don't need them. Once I asked Suzuki Roshi, what is nirvana, enlightenment? He replied, seeing one thing through to the end. What is enlightenment or nirvana? And Suzuki Roshi replied, seeing one thing through to the end. That is so simple and so true. And so, of course, at first I thought, okay, that means I should write till I die. And then I realized, no, everything. You're buttering a peanut butter, putting peanut butter on a slice of bread. Put it all the way to the corners and then eat it. You plant a tree. Keep a relationship with the tree, even in winter. If it's too dry, give it water. Stay with it. Meet it. Meet our life moment by moment. And for me, that means slowing down. Slowing down so we can feel the suffering. Not all the crazy stories, because it's crazy, but feel underneath the suffering of the world, of human beings. So slowing down, please, if you're having a hard time, go outside, even if it's for 1 full minute. Go outside. It doesn't matter where you live, Brooklyn, Atlanta, just step outside. But it's winter and it's cold. Feel the cold. That's what Zazen is about being here in this body now. We're all getting so claustrophobic. I know I'm so hungry to be around people I don't know, just a bunch of people. And people are migrating and they're stuffed with people and there's suffering there. They can't get away. It goes on and on. But maybe if we touch the ground of suffering, we can think of something genuine that can help instead of all over the place. And I'm talking about me. And the other thing we have to realize is that it's not, don't keep holding on. I'll talk for myself. I think, well, when the COVID is over, we don't know what is going to happen. We never do, but it's really being demonstrated now. And we're not going back. There's nothing to go back to. Can I go back to 2 years ago, it's already gone. Even if right now the virus disappears, we can never go back. We're not even the same people. We need to taste who we are moment by moment in this situation. It's always been true, but it feels as though the joints have really turned. Oh yeah, well, what about this? What about climate change really coming at us? What about hearing, really letting it out, what's going on with African Americans and the police? It's all in our face now. Most of it has been happening for a very long time, and we have been very busy. So of course it's more painful now. Of course, and people we love are dying of the virus and of cancer. Tremendous amount of people with cancer. This is suffering. And this is impermanence, the second mark of existence. It's sort of Zen 1A. But we forget it. And I can speak for me. I'm busy. I have to write a book. I'm busy. I have students to teach. I have to make them happy. Suffering and impermanence. We have a great opportunity now to taste it. Loneliness, something we have run from forever. Everyone experiences it in one way or another. We can just let it burn through us now. It's lonely. I can't go and do the things I want. This summer, so badly, I wanted to go to a movie theater, eat popcorn, have the air conditioning really cold, and just eat buttered popcorn and even watch a junky movie. That's over for me. I can't do that anymore. And now the air conditioning, I don't want to use up all that energy. Things are not the way they were. Impermanence. I'm sorry to keep banging it over the head. Impermanence, suffering. So this doesn't mean when you hear about Afghanistan or you hear terrible things, it means, oh, it's suffering and you can write it off. It gives us a foundation or ground, but beware of when you feel like cardboard, when you hear about the pain in the world. Suffer with it. But no, before it was, no, it shouldn't be like that. Or no, it's not right. I'm not saying all this craziness and violence and cruelty is right. But if we have a ground, a foundation from which to understand it, that's what helps. Down to the bottom. I recently had a friend who had a double mastectomy, and I couldn't bear it. Before she had the surgery, I just couldn't bear it. I didn't know what to do with myself. And then I thought, well, I'm going to pray. And I'd never prayed before. And I didn't know how to pray. I thought, do you pray like this? And to a God? What do you do? How do you pray? And I was reading this book, which has been around a long time, Each Moment is the Universe, by Danon Katagiri, who is my teacher, my root teacher, my Maine teacher opened the world for me. I studied with him in the 70s and 80s and forever. And I found, I want to read this to you. This is rare for me to read things from books as part of, is this the, give me a minute. It's so good. And where did I put it? Please forgive me. I want to find this for you. Oh, Nat. Oh, come on, Roshi. It's on this right side of the page. Well, I'm going to have to tell you, and I'll never capture it the way he said it. I'll just read you something that he said, which is like a prayer anyway. It is important to deeply understand human suffering because suffering and pain never go away. The more you practice spiritual life, the more you realize this. We have this idea we'll practice spiritual life and everything will be love and light. The more you try to live in peace and harmony, the more you see how egotistical and selfish you are. The deeper you go, the more you see the minute vibration of suffering coming up from the depths of your heart. It is true in every religion. If you pray to God with sincerity, you still suffer. Even though you attain enlightenment, suffering and pain are still there in your life. But that's all right. Just like everything that exists in the phenomenal world, your suffering is a being that arises from the original nature of existence. And every moment it returns to its source. So when you see suffering, all you have to do is accept it and offer your body and mind to ultimate existence. Then you and suffering return to emptiness, and there is freedom from suffering. The freedom is when you don't fight it, when you're with it, when you accept it. He did mention prayer, but here it is, I got this, okay? Because I really want you to hear this. Prayer is not something directed from a particular subject to a particular object with the expectation of a particular result. Prayer is egolessness supported by deep love for all beings, a profound aspiration extended to all lives. I'm so glad I found that. I'm sorry I diddered with it, but I really wanted to share that with you. It's throwing ourselves away, finally. So when my friend was going to get a double mastectomy, I was destroyed, but then I fought it rather than letting myself be thrown away to everything. I didn't want it. It didn't matter if I didn't want it. I don't want this virus. I don't want people dying of it. I don't want people suffering. And that's what I want. And it doesn't mean beans. So you're sitting there thinking, well, Natalie, Well, so I want to say, what is, so that I said there were 3 marks of existence. If you were my students and we were in the classroom, which I'm going to make it like that now. Yes? No. Oh, Kigako raised his hand. Yes, Kigako. See, I have a student. Good. So this is what I would do, and I'm going to do it now. I've given you 2 marks of existence, and they're very at the bottom: suffering, impermanence. Go 10 minutes, write what is not impermanent. You'll have nothing to write. Go 10 minutes, what suffers? You'll have to write volumes. So these are essential. I'm going to ask you, and you can't look it up. You could look it up in all these devices. They might even give you the 3rd one, but you won't understand it. It takes years or really paying attention. I'm going to ask you, what is the 3rd one? What's the 3rd mark of existence? I realized many years ago in 1976, I was at Naropa Institute, and Trungpa Rinpoche, in a very big lecture hall, told us the 3 marks of existence. And I thought, what's the big deal? I don't know what he's talking about. And I walked out and I couldn't stop sobbing, because another part of me heard it. But it's taken all this time to close the gap between that person in 1968 and me now, to realize it, to come down all the way. That's wisdom. That's carrying it in our belly. But then we get busy in the world, in the dualistic world, you, me, what I want, what I don't want. And then the wisdom goes a little away, but what we can carry is a faith that the things we touched were true. The other day when I was doing writing practice, and for no reason, I kind of felt okay. I just felt a little peppy, and I was writing, and I turned to myself in the writing. I said, Nat, why are you so happy right now? And I answered right away, because the things that I was told way back then at the beginning of Zen, when I was studying with Roshi, turn out to be true. To be true, that they hold now. There's nothing to hold on to, but to know these things help us not be tossed away. To see reality. Isn't that finally what we want? It's what I've always wanted. What is going on? I used to feel it in my family, in the world, when I'd go to a city, when I'd go to the country. What is going on? Who are we? You can come back. Sitting is a very good thing. I have been all my life a proponent of writing practice, and it blooms out of what I'm talking about now. But sit down, just sit still. Anyone can do that. You don't need any fancy equipment. Let's sit with our own lives, our own pain, and the pain we see around us. I tell you suffering, but you need to taste it. I know you're tasting it. We're all tasting it. But the bottom, feel it. And our life will bloom. I'll give you a hint for the third one, okay? Writing Down the Bones came out 35 years ago. In one of the chapters, the first sentence says the third mark of existence. It doesn't pronounce it as the third mark of existence. And I remember when I was a young writer in my 30s in Santa Fe, I wrote that first line and I thought, oh, they're going to just slaughter you. They're going to say, what are you talking about? In 35 years, no one has ever mentioned it to me. And so I kind of checked it out once in a while. I'd say, did you read that line? What did you think? They went, oh yeah, we all know someplace in us. And I'll give you another hint. Thich Nhat Hanh says it in a very palatable way, what the third mark of existence is. So maybe you could chew on that. You could sit, your monkey mind is going crazy. So you think, instead, what do you think that third mark of existence is? And chew on it a little. See if you can get below discursive thinking. Okay. I don't think I have, maybe I'd have now question and answer, but we don't have that. So let Kigaku.
If anyone on YouTube.
Oh, they can ask?
They can put it in the text and I'll ask you.
Okay,
You want to
okay.
say that in case they didn't hear me?
Oh, okay. Kigaku said that if you want, if you're on YouTube, you can put it in a text and he can read it to me. We have just a few minutes. Maybe I could answer one or two, or you could make a comment if you want. Or we could just sit and taste our lives. I'm looking at you because it's a camera, but when you usually sit, you sit 45 degrees unfocused. Is there any question, Kigaku?
One, how are you taking care of yourself during this time?
How am I taking care of myself during this time? I'm glad you asked. I wear one of these masks all the time. Sometimes even in my house, I don't realize that I come in from outside. I don't take it off. And I'm glad you asked that because I wanted to tell you this. They really work. In September, the allergies were terrible in New Mexico, terrible. And I like being outside and I wanted so badly to write outside. And I made myself anyway. And after 15 minutes, my eyes were tearing. I was sneezing. It was terrible. So I ran inside, but I was determined. So I put on a double mask and I went out again and I was writing. I actually think, and this is hard to believe, but I think I was out there 4 hours writing and didn't even notice. I forgot. So they're not only good to keep the virus out, but also protect you from the pollen. They really work. Wear them. And that's what I do. I really wear one. I wash my hands a lot. I use that antibacterial stuff that some people think you shouldn't use. And I stay away from people. And if I see people, I'm outside with them and we're 6 feet away. I follow the rules. I'm not usually a rule follower. This time I am. Yeah, I want to just say one of, and I suffer with my life. I try to meet it. Okay, what's the second one?
What would you say to memorialize a lost one?
What would I say to memorialize a lost one? That would be very personal. I would say something very personal. I'd share a story, a connection. And maybe I would turn to them and say, I will miss you terribly. I will go on, but you'll be with me and I'll miss you. I think that's, I'll miss you. I miss you now, all of you. We have no bodies here. Okay, let's end it. Thank you. Oh, one last one. Okay.
Who is the author of Every Moment is the Universe?
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Author of Every Moment is the Universe? The author of that? Somebody's asking.
Oh, each moment is the universe. It's Dedan Katagiri. It's Shambhala is the publisher, and it's Dedan Katagiri Roshi. He died in 1990, but his students are taking his talks and putting them into books. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Natalie. We'll end with the 4 vows.
Yeah.
Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to transform them. Reality is boundless, I vow to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to transform them. Reality is boundless, I vow to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it. Creations are numberless, I vow to free them. Delusions are inexhaustible, I vow to transform them. Reality is boundless, I vow to perceive it. The awakened way is unsurpassable, I vow to embody it.